afternoon. I'm Mark Page, one of the practitioners here, and Lysa has asked me to say a few words about her, but also to open our time with a short prayer. So we just bow your head and go with me. This is what I know to be true. The presence of God in all its creativity, wisdom, and love is here right now. I also know that we are one with that incredible presence in all its creativity, love, and wisdom. We are gathered here today to celebrate with one of our very own, Lysa Allman-Baldwin, and her courageous journey of self-discovery. And we are grateful for the evolution that occurs in every single one of us as well. So we bless this time together, and we are hoping to all that we may receive. And so it is. Let me just tell you a little bit about Lysa. For almost 25 years, she has fed her wanderlust for everything that the world has to offer by writing passionately about travel, cuisine, historic sites and attractions, cultural events, accommodations, spas, festivals, and other travel-related topics for numerous print and online publications. To date, she has visited over 20 countries, almost all of the United States, and countless big cities, small towns, and villages in between. That list is continually growing. Lysa is also the publisher and editor of travel website AmazingEscapades.com, and a motivational speaker whose mission is, through the written and spoken word, to show others how to live a life full of passion, authenticity, and purpose. A few years ago, Lysa's travels crossed paths with a very personal inner journey which resulted in her new book, I Cried, and People Listened, and People Loved Me Anyway. It's the story of how, due to a series of events that happened within a very short period of time, her life completely fell apart, and she was literally ready to check out. No longer able to maintain the subconscious facade she had built up since childhood, the master of cover-up, she had become shattered to bits. And all that was left was her. And she had no idea who she really was. One of her book reviewers wrote, Lysa Allman-Baldwin has taken the very worst of experiences, filleted open her soul, and allowed us to take a peek inside. Her brutal honesty, willingness to show all the warts, and bravery in coming through this dark journey holds treasures for the rest of us. I consider Lysa to be a good friend, and I've had the privilege and honor of being a prayer partner with her on part of this journey. And yesterday I read the book. It is raw, it is gritty, it is honest, it is filled with wisdom. And truly, as she says near the end, the good news is the bad news, which she'll probably explain more. But right now, please, let's give it up for one of our very own, Lysa Allman-Baldwin.
Thank you. I'm just trying to take it all in. I have my tissue box because I'm a huge crier. I cry about everything happy and sad, so this was the perfect title for the book. So you'll excuse me if it goes out. All right. So I have a lot of people to thank, which I'm going to do that more near the end. It's really interesting because when I'm usually up here, I'm presiding for the church, and so people are coming for church and everything. So I love it that everybody in the room actually came to see me. Okay, let's start. Let's get right to it. Chapter 1, page 1. I cried. At age 52, I was a master of cover-ups, and I didn't even know it. When I look back on my life, I see there were several things running chaotically in my unconscious mind. For starters, I always felt that I really wasn't good enough. Deep down, I never thought I really had the talent or skills to figure things out on my own. I was profoundly disappointed in not making more money in a career that I absolutely adored, and was carrying around a lot of shame for having to ask family members at different times in my life for money. I feared that I'd let my children down by not nurturing their spirits more as babies, and now that they were teenagers, it was too late. And a bunch of other stuff. But then I cried. I mean, I really let it rip. And people loved me anyway. Chapter 3, page 4. What had happened was, in February of 2015, our beloved dog Rocco drowned, the kids' first pet. And due to the circumstances, they were not present at his transition, nor his burial, and subsequently received no closure. They were devastated, of course, and as a parent in a situation like this, you worry about their mental and emotional state of mind. They aren't yet familiar with death like we are as adults. 5 months later, the love of my life, the first man 11 years post-divorce with whom I had gone all in, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, left, totally out of the blue, essentially with no word at all. The proverbial Mack truck had struck me at 100 miles an hour, and I never saw it coming. For months, I tried to sustain a brave front, telling everyone what a wonderful person he is, and that he'd been wounded in previous relationships, and that this highway accident was probably the best that he could do. But inside, I felt like I had failed. And I gave the kids the same placebo too. I figured, why allow them to be struck by the same Mack truck? They were innocent bystanders, and this wasn't their accident. But inside, I felt like I had led them to my morgue of failure too. 10 days later, the youngest of my 2 children, both boys, was scheduled for outpatient surgery. And at the last minute, his dad, my co-parent, decided not to show up again, using his anger at me from the divorce as the reason for his impending absence this time. A mere 5 days after that, I had a motivational speaking engagement that had been scheduled for several weeks. And the title was, "You Just Have to Believe in Yourself, because you're far more than you know." Well, I gave the talk and it went well, but behind my smile, I was standing in the quicksand of stress, anger, and hurt over the past few weeks' events. The irony of the timing was not lost on me. I was, and still am, self-employed as a freelance writer, and at that particular time, the freelance work was not flowing as freely and finances were tight. But the mortgage company wants their money, and soon they started sending letters. And soon after that, their corporate attorney, John Hancock, was at the bottom. Even though the bankruptcy that happened a few years prior on the advice of my financial planner had provided some much needed and welcome relief, it was still having a numbing effect. Losing decades of an almost 800 credit score seemed like the worst kind of embarrassment to me. Around that same time, the college search for my oldest child had begun in earnest, and it all of a sudden hit me that those 17 plus years had truly gone by in the blink of an eye, and he would be leaving me. His brother soon to follow. The empty nest grieving had begun. And if that wasn't enough, There was the stress of months of research and contractor visits and bids for a variety of home improvement projects that needed to be done before winter arrived. My menopausal power surges were making me literally a hot mess, and there was all the regular life stuff, and I'm sure a bunch of other things in between that I can't remember. Or perhaps I've tried to block them out. In December, the dam holding all of my emotions didn't just break, it violently imploded. 1,000 sticks of dynamite couldn't have had a more thorough effect. Why, God, why? I do my best to be a good person. I meditate. I pray. I read self-help books and seek the wisdom of others. I practice forgiveness. I share in my abundance. I try so hard. So why does all of this keep happening to me? At the same time, I was beating myself up with, what is your deal, Lysa? Your house wasn't blown away to bits in a tornado. There's no terminal medical diagnosis in your family. Other people have lost spouses of 30, 40, 50 years and moved on with their lives. All of those things are horrible. But you have food, clothing, transportation, resources, and family and friends that love you. So why can't you pull it together? By then, I really knew what it meant when people talk about the dark night of the soul. The depression was utterly overwhelming. I wasn't eating or sleeping well. I lost 20 pounds. I was crying all the time and could barely hold myself together for more than a few minutes at a time. And I was trying really hard to hide all of this from the kids. Soon, my inner dialogue went something like this. You can't do anything right. Why did you think any man would stay around to love you? You're a horrible mother. You're not smart enough. This all hurts too much to get out of it this time. Let's just be done with it because you're not serving any purpose here anyway. Oddly enough, there was, thankfully, one sliver of light, albeit a dreary gray one. What about my kids? I'd seen what departures of your own volition do to those you left behind, and I just knew that I could never do that to them. Shit. Now the box in which I was already trapped suddenly closed in so tightly that I was completely immobile, paralyzed with fear, and hopeless. So that's the setup of the book. A lot going on there, right? You guys aren't breathing. Take a breath. Feeling trapped, not wanting to leave my kids. There was probably still some denial or unrecognition of how bad I really felt about things. And I just felt like I couldn't catch a break. Everything kept snowballing no matter what I did. You know, I'd get a little bit of relief and then something else would hit the fan and I just could not catch up. I'm sure a lot of you can identify with that. And at the time, and when you're in the thick of things, we think it's only us. Nobody else has going through what we're going through, or some other people might have, but it's not as bad as this, so nobody is going to get what you're talking about. And even when things are good, we have all those societal things. If you were here for the church service with Reverend Mike, all those societal things on top of that. What you wear, what you drive, where you live, how much you weigh, how much money you make, you know, all that stuff is collective societal stuff that over time, you know, we start to take on those things that really aren't ours. But you keep going, doing the best you can until you feel like you can't do it any longer. And I was so distraught by everything at that time, the only thing I could think of was how to get out, was to check out. I can say now that I have heard of people who contemplated checking out or who had checking out, and I never, ever, ever, ever thought that I would ever have a thought like that. It was always, you know, things will get better, you just have to hang in there until things start happening to you, and you don't even realize that that's what your mind went to. Chapter 8, when the student is ready, the teacher appears, page 44. A wave of depression had been building in me for years, honestly, for as long as I could remember. But the force of that wave finally toppled me over, sweeping me under to depths so low I didn't recognize my own thoughts. Thankfully, those thoughts were scary enough that something deep inside of me did realize it was time I got some outside support, and that was written by a woman named L. Sampras. I've had many life teachers over the years, each serving to shed a bright light or hold up a mirror to what I needed to see, hear, and learn. The current reflection I was seeing was the end of a comatose fairy tale, and not a pretty one at that. Mirror, mirror on the wall, look at all my non-serving shit that has to fall. As I said before, my spectacular fiery crash and burn was on the horizon. If I were to script it like an airline announcement, it might sound like this. Folks, this is Lysa, your captain speaking. I've maintained this altitude for as long as I could. My aircraft, soaring high above the clouds of true authenticity, has been hit by particularly strong storms this time, and the engines are failing. No need to fasten my seatbelt, place the oxygen mask over my face, or brace for impact. I'm losing altitude way too fast, and any minute now, the plane will violently collide with the earth, and there will be nothing left to salvage from the wreckage. That inevitable crash was brutal. It came in December 2015 while having a friendly chat with my friend CJ, who I'd also met here at CSL at a neighborhood coffee shop. She was telling me about her work with a life coach, an idea that I too had floated in and out of my mind for a couple of years to help me with my career goals. As soon as the last syllable left her lips, a tsunami of emotion for which I was totally unprepared surged over me, and I burst into tears. Something was definitely up. And I knew, like L. Sampras had written, those thoughts were scary enough that something deep inside of me did realize it was time I got some outside support. Prior to this coffee date, I'd only had a passing familiarity with Sherry Simmons, also from CSL, a lot of you know her, who was a professional life coach. Although warm and familiar, our relationship was certainly not one where I would have felt comfortable sharing personal information. But I was clear enough in my own mind, battered and bruised as it was at the time, that as they say, the jig is up. Lowering my defenses was my only option if I really wanted help. Looking back, I think Sherry seemed just as surprised to get my phone call that Sunday morning, a few days after tea with CJ. One of several when I could literally drag myself no further than from the bedroom to the living room before falling into a devastated, sob-racked heap on the couch, or the floor if I missed the landing, as I was with the words that came out of my mouth. Hi, Sherry, sob. This is Lysa Allman-Baldwin from CSL, sob. I need your help. CJ suggested that I call you. I don't know how you work with people or what you charge or anything like that, but I know that I need help, and it has to be with me being completely raw, with no pretenses or holding anything back, because I can't go on like this anymore. Sob, sob, sob. To my surprise, she could be there in a few hours. I think I was completely immobile until I heard the car pull into the driveway. If put off by my appearance, disheveled, certainly no bathing had occurred, my eyes likely as cherry red and swollen as a boxer's after a knockdown, drag out 12-round bout she never let on. After the initial pleasantries of offering of a cup of tea, it was time to rip off the first Band-Aid of my festering wounds. So what's going on, she said. I don't remember every detail of the verbal landslide that hit her, but I know I told her everything, sparing no details. I dove right in with the worst of it, the violent collision in July with the Mack truck bearing the license plate SD, the lifetime relationship I thought I had finally found leaving me. And that's not his real initials, by the way. A normal breakup, as unexpected as it may be, I could understand, I reasoned, and although it might hurt for a long time, ultimately accept. But to be abandoned without warning in this day and age of technology, without so much as a fucking text, email, or even old school snail mail is just not right, I cried to her. I would never have done that to him, I said. SD was, I went on, just the latest in a long string of people who had very unceremoniously dumped me before. Ordinary friendships along the way, relationships with men before I was married and after my divorce, and my former in-laws, my ex's parents and 3 siblings, with whom I'd had a wonderful close relationship, all disappearing in the blink of an eye. It wasn't until several weeks later that I made the connection between these withdrawals and my feelings about the mental and emotional abandonment from my father when I was little. This latest rejection was further proof beyond the shadow of a doubt, I told Sherry, that apparently I was not worthy of even the most basic form of common decency from other people. From there, I connected all the other miserable life events of the last 6 months. The dog drowning, my son's outpatient surgery, my ex-husband dropout stuff, my financial struggles, the onset bout of empty nester syndrome, the hot mess of menopause, and so forth. It was all too much to bear, and I had no idea what to do. I'm just done, and I can't take it anymore. I didn't know it at the time, but the only thing I was really suffering from was a deeply entrenched subliminal belief that I was unworthy of anything. Happiness, success, money, trust, and most of all, love. Sherry waited silently, a look of pure compassion on her face and an understanding of my pain in her eyes. She listened and said she was so sorry these things had happened. For just the briefest of moments in my hysteria, I felt like she could really feel me. Help was on the way. I'm here for you, she reassured me. In all honesty, I couldn't say that the student was really ready, but I was certain that the right teacher for this part of my spiritual journey had indeed appeared. So like I said earlier, what I discovered is that there was a whole lot of childhood stuff running the program in the background. And whether your childhood stories are positive or negative, it forms your belief system. And what I had to learn, and what Sherry was beginning to teach me, was that to discern what my beliefs really were, and to decide which ones were serving me, and which ones weren't serving me anymore. And there was a lot that she had to unravel with me. And it was both painful and liberating at the same time as time went on. Now, you guys are not breathing again. I'm looking at you. You guys are all holding your breath. So the whole book is not all doom and gloom. There are lots of light moments and funny moments, and probably some of you, a few of you have already done it. When I was going back through and editing, and you read your book over and over, and I was going back and editing, and some parts I got to, and I read it, and out loud I said, damn. So a lot of my friends have been texting me, sending me, page 19, damn. So I feel free, you guys, to do that and tell me what page number and hashtag me or whatever. So, of course, after being a travel writer for 25 years, there's lots of travel welded into the book also. And actually, travel is really what helped to save me when things were going on. So, chapter 19 is called Getting the Hell Out of Dodge. And I'm starting about the middle of the chapter on page 109. After waiting and waiting and waiting and calling twice, leaving messages, it was clear my ride to the airport wasn't coming. I found out later that my friend's kids had tinkered with his cell phone, accidentally shutting off his 3:45 alarm. Sweating bullets that I would miss my flight, I summoned an Uber, which thankfully arrived in 10 minutes. Dropped off at the departure terminal in plenty of time to check in, I was nonetheless all stressed out about the additional length of time necessary to check my suitcase, something I rarely do. Murphy's Law was most undeniably at play. My suitcase was 5 pounds overweight, which would warrant an additional $75 fee. Luckily, the airline offered these large, sturdy duffel bags into which passengers could offload some of their heavy items, and it was only a $25 charge. Thankfully, my undergarments were in another bag and not exposed to everyone in line now watching me rearrange my clothes. During screening, the now lighter aforementioned suitcase looked suspect. I had already anticipated that the jar of organic almond butter inside I insisted on taking would raise a red flag, which is why I had hung around to be able to hand my keys directly to the TSA agent so he wouldn't cut off my lock. After nicely, albeit not neatly, repacking my things, said agent lost the lock I'd hoped he wouldn't cut off in the first place, but I had a backup lock at the ready. By the time the other bleary-eyed pre-dawn passengers and I were nestled in our seats, the off and on torrential rains during the night had begun again in earnest, forcing the pilot to remain at the gate until they subsided. Our takeoff was significantly delayed. Arriving in Chicago 30 minutes later than scheduled shortened my layover to less than 45 minutes, requiring a sweaty, heart-pounding race walk to my next gate. Even if I miss this damn flight, I am not leaving this airport until they put me on a plane headed anywhere out of the country, I remember thinking. Within what seemed like seconds of my breathless arrival at the designated cattle call boarding section to which I was assigned, I made my way down the jetway. The door closed and pre-flight announcements made, I laid my head against the window and drifted off, hoping like hell I wouldn't wake up to find out my break from life's harsh realities was nothing more than a pipe dream that would never come to fruition. So I won't do a spoiler, but I did take off to travel for a significant period of time, and the book will tell you all that came up with that. So that was my escape. So I wanted to point out here my vision board. So I did this vision board on July 22nd, 2012. And if any of you know Paulette Pipe, she does Touching the Stillness Ministries, she did this with me. So I knew that I had wanted to do a vision board for a long time, and I wasn't exactly sure what I wanted to do it about. And she said that I didn't really have to know, but maybe if I had a few ideas, it would be helpful. So I had 5 different things, and the kids will pull the board down here later so you can look at it. So I had about 5 different ideas, and I was, a while ago, working on a book that was about my, at that time, 20 years as a travel writer. Funny stuff that happens on the road, all the drama when you travel with other travel writers, all the good food and all that stuff. So that was number 5 on my list of maybe. So I wasn't even really thinking about, what order to do my vision board in. So Paulette did a meditation and a prayer with me, and I can't remember the words of what she said, but she said, usually when we do this, sometimes what you really want to focus on, it'll just come up to the surface. And so what came up was the book about my travel writing experiences, and that was number 5 of what I had written down. So using that idea, we went through and did all of this. Did I lose sound here? Okay. So we went and cut out things from newspapers and magazines, and we found some pictures. This is me in Rome. This is me with the kids when they were little. She found this one because, I work out a lot. She's about staying fit on the road. She came up with this one. She said there's some symbology of circles and life processes. And then I had down here a world of flavor, taste of travel, because those of you who know me really well know I love to eat. There's wine, travel, and then I had found this thing that was a Kindle about a writer, and then traveling on the road, because I had always planned, before the kids were born, my plan was that I would be a full-time travel writer, and then my office would be my laptop wherever I am. So it was a 15-year plan, and then I blinked and it was a 10-year, and then 8, and then 6, and then 5, and then 4, and now they're almost both gone now. So we had all of this, and then we found a check that, and this is how Spirit works. The imprint on the back of the check says one presence, one power. We didn't get that out of a spiritual journal or Bible or anything, and so I signed it as from the Bank of Unlimited from the universe and didn't put an amount on it. So I had all these things on here. And then what she had me do was to come up with an intention statement and a vision statement. So my vision statement was, by my 50th birthday, August 29th, 2013, I will be on my first book tour. And then my intention statement was to be a published author and public speaker. So I never did finish that travel writing book. I will get back to it. And I've had this in my bedroom for all that time, and look at it here and there, and then life happened and everything. But if you look at it, and again, for those of you on a spiritual path, this is how Spirit works. So I wrote this July 22nd, 2012, and I was saying by my 50th birthday on August 29th, 2013. Okay? So in about 2 weeks from now, I leave for a book tour. I'm going to be gone about 7 weeks. It's almost 5 years to the day, and on August 29th, I'm not sure where I'll be, but I will be gone on my book tour. Right? So you just have to wait it out. You just have to wait it out. Okay, so I want to introduce you to my kids. Come up here, guys. So I definitely know I need the tissues for this one.
Yep.
I can't even start. This is Joseph. This is my first heart walking on the outside of my body. And he's 19, and he is a sophomore at Vanderbilt University. Yeah. And he was engineering student the first year, and he's changed his major. And so now he is in leadership track for human and organizational development.
There we go.
Right? Got it right? Yep. And he's thinking that after he finishes, he might want to go into naval officer training. So he's my first heart walking on the outside of my body. And this is William. This is my second heart walking on the outside of my body. And William is 17, and this is going to be his senior in high school, and he doesn't know what he wants to do yet. But probably because he's played soccer since he was third grade, and he plays in band, and so maybe something with that. We've visited 5 colleges so far, and probably do a few more, and then he'll be thinking about what he wants to do, and then they'll both be off, and I'll be traveling full time with my laptop as my desk. Okay, thank you guys, love you. So the last thing I want to leave you with before we do question and answer is, I didn't check out because of them. And that's 2 really, really good reasons. But it's not enough. You need to choose to stay in this life for you. You have to do it because you know that you're worthy enough, that you're smart enough, that you're beautiful enough, that you have value and worth, because you're willing to weather the tough times and know that you will be even more brilliant and stronger on the other side of them. And you'll be able to share your story and help other people. And you have to stick around because you truly love yourself, warts and all. We all have them, and they are part of what makes us who we are. And if you follow a spiritual or religious path, you need to know that there is something greater than you that sent you here for a reason. So if you need to cry, go ahead and cry. Really let it rip. And know that people will love you anyway. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I appreciate all you guys coming. So we'll get to Q&A in a second. I want to acknowledge a few people. First of all, CSL. I've been here almost 5 years. CSL has been just the wealth of support, all of the people that come here when I was going through, when everything was happy, when everything was horrible, they have just been an absolute support to me, and especially Reverend Mike. Is he here? I think he might have gone home. And then for those of you who know Dr. Chris Michaels, who now is minister of CSL in Fort Lauderdale. So they have all played a pivotal role in my healing, spiritual growth, and sense of community and family. Prior to coming here, I was a member at Unity Temple on the Plaza for 15 years, and that was my first introduction to a spiritual life. I had fled the fire and brimstone upbringing that I had. As soon as we hit 18 and didn't have to go to church anymore, I was out. And I hadn't gone to church in like 25 years. I wasn't even sure there was a God because it just seemed like an awful Jekyll and Hyde God that was nice one minute and horrible the next, and that's what I grew up in. So when we moved from California to here in 2000, my then in-laws family went to Unity Temple, and they said, do you want to go with us? And we're like, sure, whatever, thinking we're just going one time, and we stayed. So the temple and Duke Tufty over there have been a big support to me. Natasha, she's not here right now, El Scari, who also is part of the art gallery in the back. She has been a wonderful friend and a great consultant, helping me out with everything. This is Ted. Ted, can you stand up? Ted Tronis, he's one of my graphic designers. And Jenny Hahn. Jenny, can you stand up? Jenny's an incredible artist and my other graphic designer. And Jenny did my book cover, front and back. Let's see, Stacy Miller. Can you stand up, Stacy? Stacy did my beautiful photography. Melanie Carver. So Melanie and I met. Her son and my son both got accepted to Vanderbilt at the same time, and they have these Vanderbilt summer parties for families that are going to the school, and that's how we met, and we were in love from day one. And so now she's my really good friend, and she's my manager. Imagine that. And I want to thank Ken Stinnett, who Ken is, what did you say?
Both of our sons are named Joseph.
And both of our sons are named Joseph, right. Ken Stinnett, who's doing the videography. Ken is wonderful. So I thank you for videotaping this, and he's videotaped all my talks that are on YouTube and everything, so I really appreciate all of that. So let's have some Q&A. If you haven't had a chance to get the book yet, you can come up here, yes? To what? There's 2 left? Yeah. Okay, so there's 2 left, but if you haven't had a chance, that's a good problem to have, right, when your books sell out? If you haven't had a chance to buy one yet, if you still want one, we'll give it to you at the pre-publication discount price. So, and then we'll just get your name and all of that. Okay, so who has questions for the hot mess up here? Anybody? Mike, yes.
So, we've seen you come through all this. I mean, those of us who know you and were there and saw bits and pieces. What has been the gift? So what's the biggest, after coming through all this and some 2020 hindsight, what's been one of the biggest gifts for you having gone through the breakdown is breakthrough sort of experience?
Okay, so his question was, after going through all of this and hitting the lows and everything, what were the biggest gifts from all of that? I think one of the biggest gifts was I didn't realize that I was carrying stories from my childhood that were there before I was even born, and they had nothing to do with me. And that's not disrespectful to my parents, I don't feel. It's just everybody comes from something. So whether, I was telling some people a couple of weeks ago, if you're told when you're little that you're wonderful and you're smart and you're brilliant and you can do this, that, and the next thing, you believe it because the whole world centers around you. You don't know any different, and so supposedly these people that are raising you are telling you the truth. And it works the other way too. If things are giving you messages that are not helpful, I'll say it nicely that way, that are not helpful and not supportive, again, you're the center of the universe when you're little, you don't know any different. So these people that raised you, they must be telling you the truth. So I learned that there was a lot of stories that were other people's stories, but the way they reacted to me or put their stories out on me, I thought that had to do with me. So I would say that's the biggest gift. The other biggest gift is that I've talked to a lot of people about the book when I was finishing up, and to hear other people validate me by saying, oh my God, me too, whatever thing it was, the divorce or the money or the this or the that. Everybody said, oh yeah, that was me too. And in your head, you're thinking, really? There's somebody else who went through this too? So that has been a great gift, and to be able to share with people and then just help people, because I know a lot of times when I've gone either here to church or somewhere else to church and they give the lesson and I swear that they must have been reading my journal. Like, how did they know that's what was going on? So I feel like the blessing and the gift is that I get to share my story with other people so that they know that, you know, tough times are going to come and they're going to go through things, but that checking out is not an option. That's a permanent solution to a temporary problem. Don't ever make that an option. And I do know, you know, there are people who suffer from mental illness and other things that play into that. But if even one person hears what I have to say or reads the book and changes their mind about checking out, the whole thing was worth it. The whole thing was worth it. Did you have a question? Yeah, Margo.
I'm an aspiring published author, hopefully. What are your techniques to your writing style? What's your process? Like, do you outline? Do you just word vomit, edit? What's the whole process?
Okay, so Margo wants to know what my process is as a writer. She's an aspiring writer. What my process is, do I do outlines or, what did you say, word vomit?
Yeah, do you word vomit?
Word vomit. For me, I have to write everything down, and at the moment that I think of it. So it's either on scraps of paper, or I'm at the computer, or it's on my phone. The kids call me squirrel, like, you know, you're talking and a squirrel goes by and the dog goes whoop, and so I'll be talking and all of a sudden I'll remember something, I'll go squirrel. So I just write everything down, even if it sounds like the dumbest thing I ever thought of. I just write it down, because then when I'm pulling all together all these scraps of paper and everything, then things kind of start to make sense. I personally write things on the computer, and sometimes I'll do it by hand, but when I edit, and it's just me, I like the process of writing with my hands, so I print out everything. And so a lot of times when I travel and I have a story coming up, I'll print it out, and on the airplane I'm writing and doing my edits, and then I go back. Some people are fine with just putting it all on the computer. I would say write every day, even if you think you only have 5 minutes. Your day is so busy, you only have 5 minutes. 5 minutes adds up to a page, to 2 pages, to 5 pages, to 6 pages, and don't stress yourself out on, I'm going to write 30 pages by Friday, and I'm going to get 8 chapters done by Monday. You know, you can have some goals for it, but don't stress yourself out with the timing and everything, because you kind of lose the sense of what you want to write, and you're more stressed out on, you know, trying to meet that deadline. That would be what I would say. Tracy.
What are some of the steps that you took to forgive and love SD?
Some of the steps that I took to forgive and love SD. I can see that he was basically suffering from the same thing that I was, which was thoughts of unworthiness, unlovable, all this other stuff. And so his exit didn't have anything to do with me. And I'm not saying that as in I was the perfect girlfriend or anything, but that's what was going on, and that was kind of in his background. He had done this many times before. So clearly, it wasn't me and the woman before me and the woman before that. It's whatever was going on with him. So for me to not be able to forgive him for leaving would be not forgiving myself then, because we were both thinking the same thing. We just didn't know it at the time. And then going back to when you asked about gifts, so one of the gifts was, I see now that all of these things had to happen, and in that order, and in 6-month period of time, not that I want to repeat it, for me to get whatever it is I needed to learn about myself and about moving forward and everything. If they had happened, you know, one here, one there, I mean, not that I would never get anything, but crash and burn, as horrible as it is, it gives you some clarity, and especially if you get help. So that's part of the forgiveness process. And then I do talk about in the book, another book by Colin Tipping called Radical Forgiveness. And for those of you that have read it, I mean, it clears up forgiveness in a different way, I mean, right off from the first page. And so you just get a lot of clarity on how we're all, you know, mad because somebody left us or somebody fired us or, you know, somebody ran a red light, you know, and jacked up your car. Now you have to buy another car. Now I don't have the money to, you know, I mean, this is stuff that happens all the time. And there's little things of forgiveness we need to do, and then there's the big ones, you know, things that our parents did or a spouse or what have you. So it's just, every time I think I want to be mad at somebody for something they did or said, I try to turn it around on myself and say, well, how are you different from them? And then that kind of shuts it down right away. Or if I'm going to think something, you know, not so nice about somebody else, or I want somebody else to change, let's say in my head, then I think, okay, well, what am I offering? I want them to change for me, so what am I offering? What am I going to change for them? And that's whether it's a stranger or somebody you know. And so that kind of just gets you right away about thinking about forgiveness a different way and letting people be who they are and love them who they are. Doesn't mean you have to be, you know, buddy-buddy with them and in their face all the time. And doesn't mean that everybody has to like me. But people who don't like me, that's not always about me. Sometimes it might be, but a lot of times it doesn't have anything to do with me. So, Judy?
What's one thing Sherry told you that just keeps popping up in your head that you live by?
That's a good one. She said, what's the one thing Sherry told me that keeps popping up in my head to live by? She used to always tell me, your next level of spiritual awareness is the floor that you're going to stand on. So I'd always remember, if something, you know, things were getting better and I get to here, that's where I'm going to start from then. And that's the floor I'm going to stand on to go to the next level of whatever it is. And that I remember from her all the time. Anybody else? Yes. My Christy.
Okay, if I may just answer one of the questions,
Sure.
like what was the gift? Like I feel like the gift of Lisa's life was the gift to my life, because I feel like Lisa saved my life literally just with her story and just walking through with her. And so I just want to thank you just publicly for saving my life, and you helped me to check out just through your life and all that you went through. So I just want to say thank you, Lisa. You're just not only a gift to me, but all of us here. Thank you.
Anybody else have a question? I know you're all hungry. It's lunchtime. Yes, Joan.
You self-published, right?
Yes.
So tell me about that decision.
Okay. So years ago, you know, if you were going to publish a book, you had to go through a publisher, and you know, you probably had to be a doctor, or PhD, or a celebrity, or something, and go through a publicist, and you know, thousands of dollars. But you know, as technology has advanced, there's all these other ways to do it, and there's many different companies you can self-publish with. But Amazon, the biggest thing on the planet, they have their own self-publishing entity called Create Space, and several people had recommended that to me. It is so easy, it's not even funny. I mean, you do your book, you format it, you can have them choose, you can choose from one of their covers they offer, or you can upload your own artwork. It's so easy, and it's no cost to it at all. That's the other thing, there's no cost to it. And then everything you can do online, you can see a proof of your book online, they can send you one in the mail, they give you all kinds of resources to do that. And then of course, when your book is published, then it's published on Amazon. So that's the biggest publicity you could ever get from anywhere. And then you can also do it in Kindle only version, you can do it in print, you can do it in print and Kindle. So mine will be on Kindle, it'll probably be a couple of weeks because there's a little bit of different formatting you have to do. And then you're able to order your own books from there, and they give you the author cost. So if you're going to go do events and things like that, you can order them ahead of time and do all of that. But I highly, highly recommend that. And if you don't have your own, you feel good enough graphic design skills to do your cover art and everything, I would suggest that you hire someone to do your graphic design because you really want it to look right. But you get to choose if you want color, black and white, you get to choose glossy, or, I mean, they have everything. Amazon, okay, I just need to say Amazon, right? Amazon offers you everything. So that's a really good way to do that. And you can choose distribution channels. You could do only North America, you could do only United States, you could do European channels. So, once everything's up there, your book can be anywhere and you can point people to it all the time. Squirrel. What? That wasn't squirrel. Okay. Matthew.
So I was hoping you could expand upon chapter 4 when you started to kind of justify or rationalize people with bigger problems. That with no terminal illness or anything like that. And because I think a lot of people do that. Oh, my problems are there. People across the pond that have bigger problems.
Right.
Can you expand upon your thoughts on all?
Yeah. So he asked if I could expand upon when I was talking about how I was thinking, people have bigger problems. The house didn't get blown away in a tornado, and people lost spouses of 30, 40, 50 years. What's your problem? You were with this guy for 2.5 years. Things like that. It was all part of the unlearning of the old stories that Sherry had to do with me. I mean, we spent months and months and months on that, and everything came back to old childhood stuff and societal stuff that people tell you. So you try to rationalize. Okay, pick it. The dog drowned. Okay, that's horrible. Of course, that's your baby. But then you might rationalize it, well, I only had the dog 5 years and somebody else had their dog 15 years. So why am I crying? They had the dog longer. Or, like I said, somebody's been with a spouse for 40 years. Okay, to me, that would be pretty major. The spouse goes after 40 years. So you start rationalizing, well, I shouldn't complain because, he left and it was only 2 years. But, these people were together, decades. But that's minimizing your own feelings, which is a childhood thing that I got, because in my household, we didn't talk about feelings. There was no talking about how to deal with adversity. We just keep it moving, we don't talk about it. So that was what my problem was. So now, 52 years later, the shit hits the fan, and I have no skills. I have no idea what to do. I don't know that I can go to other people, or if I would go to other people, maybe I'll get shut down. Like I was told before, hey, what are you crying about? It's not a big deal. You have money, you have a car, you have a place to live, that type of thing. So it's just reprogramming and not minimizing your feelings. Your feelings are valid. It does not matter what happened or how many years it's been, or don't compare your feelings to somebody else. Your feelings are right. What you do with them is what the thing is, okay? And don't feel like you're not allowed to be stuck, because sometimes being stuck is a good thing. You don't want to live there for a long time, but sometimes being stuck is a good thing. So you have time to think about things and process and get people to help you and figure out what you want to do with things and what is the meaning in it for you. I believe everything happens for a reason. And you just need to take the time to figure out what that reason is for you, or what do you want to do with what happened. Or, there's plenty of people walking around who, had all kinds of atrocities happen to them, and they've started foundations, or they've, opened schools, or whatever it is. Rich people that, are not celebrities, everybody has something. So don't minimize or discount your feelings, because they're valid. And don't compare them to somebody else's. Somebody else who's gone through something similar might be able to help you with that. But even if both people had the spouse die at 30 years, both of their experiences is still different. So you need to allow for that. Anybody else? All right. I really thank you guys for coming. I really, really appreciate it. If I didn't get a chance to sign your book, I'd love to sign your book. Share your story with other people, and before you leave, introduce yourself to 2 people that you do not know and tell them something that you love about yourself and why. Because we all need that connection. We all need that connection. Thank you.